Hello, everybody. We're back. I hopefully have resolved the issue of the volume. I invested in some remote mics. Beverly's got one on. I've got one on. If it doesn't work, going to have to get some sort of technician over here because we're still living in the 60s, Bev and I. But, anyways, what's the first question, Bev?
Okay, Eddie Johnson writes, it has to be frustrating that people pick apart everything you say.
Well, actually, that kind of started in the 80s. And I'll tell you, I would much rather have the public pick me apart than my former brothers in the club. And what happened was every time I did an interview, uh, not only was the media and the public hard on me, but I also started getting critiqued by the members. So it was a real double edged sword. So, this point in my life when people make comments, I look to see if they were around back then, and most of them weren't even around. Never heard of them before. Never sat in on an officers' meeting. Yet they're telling me what really transpired, and that basically I'm full of it. But I appreciate you taking notice of that. But I guess you just got to roll with it. Okay, next one, Bev.
Okay, Joe Whale says the early days of the club were associated with underground and counter movements. What happened?
Well, yeah, I think he's thinking about the underground and the counterculture in the '60s, and a lot of the people the club hung out with. But I really attribute a lot of that to San Francisco. Uh, I mean, I know guys in the Oakland Charter did. I know Animal was friends with that whole dead scene. I mean, him and I had a lot of partying going at concerts and whatnot.
But your club reflects the relevancy of what's going on in the world.
Well, it's a reflection of society and culture, but the world encompasses many cultures and different people identify with different things. Sonny was more of a conservative, right wing. You can see how he responded to the protests, anti-war protests in the '60s, and then Allen Ginsberg, and I think Ken Kesey came and talked to him, and they reached some sort of accord. We had the relationship with all the bands in the Bay Area. I don't know what's going on with the club and the philosophy of it. I think it's pretty evident. I know where I'm coming from, and it's not from any new place. It's always been in the same place. And, I certainly learned some lessons. You hear me profess that to be an effective peacemaker, you have to be willing to go to war. But, war is not something that I enjoyed. Uh, and I think that be better if the world got along. It'd be better if people in the outlaw bike world got along. But anyways, next one, Beverly.
Okay, Albert Metal writes, are you ever going to let Sonny rest in peace?
Well, you write me from time to time, and you always have something snarky to say. Pretty much, that's the way I'm interpreting it. And I may be reading you completely wrong. I don't know you. I don't know you from Adam, but I'm going to tell you something. If you pick a fight with me, as Sonny did, I'm going to respond. And I'll tell you, if you really want to get some insight and advice on how I am, I'd say go talk to your mom.
Timothy Wells writes, did you interact with the Dirty Dozen in the early days?
Well, it's interesting. We had a early Ventura member that was a former Dirty Dozen, Daryl, and so we were interacting with the Dirty Dozen. And back in those days, it was pretty wild. I remember Robert Poland and Nazi Dave, both from Daly City, went to Arizona to party, and there was a gunfight in the middle of the bar. Somebody got killed, and it was everybody was open carrying there, and it was kind of like shootout at the OK Corral. I think a Dirty Dozen member shot somebody else, but the other people threw down first. I don't know all the circumstances. I wasn't there, but I know the Dirty Dozen would come and visit us. I remember one time Al. I can't remember what chart. I want to say Phoenix, but I don't know. But Al came and visited, and apparently he had a load of counterfeit money with him. And the next day, the Treasury Department had a few inquiries about what the hell we were doing with him. But they thought Tom was getting on an airplane going to Oakland with a bag. They thought he had a $500,000 worth of counterfeit money on him. And he walked into the airport. He was at the small Burbank airport. This security was pretty lax back then. And he was getting ready to jump on the plane, and they swarmed him. Uh, and It's funny because he called me. They had him in a room. They were sweating him. And he goes, "They want to look in my bag." And I said, "Well, is there anything in it?" And he goes, "No." And I go, "Let him look in it." So he said, "Yeah, go ahead and look in my bag." They look in his bag, and they go, "Where's all the money?" And he goes, "I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about." And they argued back and forth for 20 minutes. Tom left, got on his plane, and made it to the officers' meeting in Oakland. But that's some of the Dirty Dozen stories. But they did visit us a lot, and some of our guys would go out there and have some fun. Uh, Anyways, I'm reminiscing now.
Okay, Soy Benz writes, elaborate on Irish as an old school guy.
Well, I think it would be better if maybe I did a segment on Irish. But Irish was a character, man. I know that in Glendale, when he was a Los Angeles member, the bar owners would pay him not to come in, and he would go around and make the rounds. There were some people in the charter that were real pissed off about it, but he would go to the bars and they would, give him. I don't know how much they gave him, but it was never disclosed to me. But they would pay him not to come there. But he was just an old school party guy. I remember one time we had a whole bunch of money for a run. He was president of Oakland, and I think we'd moved to Ventura by then, and or I could have been president of Los Angeles. I don't remember, but I remember uh, part of the expenses were 2 ounces of cocaine. It was for the run. He's just an old school guy, and uh, he'd fight you in a minute and then buy you a drink, dust you off. I mean, it was just classic old school, no hard feelings. But if he didn't think you were for real, man, he'd focus on running you off. That's one of the things I could talk about. I was there the night that Irish kind of ran Dirty Dennis off from Berdoo. And there's a whole story behind it. And Little Joe was there, and I was there. Big Al was there from Oakland. We were at the big greenhouse in Ventura. Uh, I don't know if it was Irish or if it was Albert, but the shots were they were either 50 cents or $1 a shot of tequila. And they either put a $50 bill up or $100 bill, and we had either 50 or 100 shots of tequila. I can't remember. I remember the band started putting their shit away. They were kind of like, "We got to get the fuck out of here." And Irish said, "No, you got one more set to do." They go, "Oh, no, we're only playing till." He goes, "No, you're playing one more set." And that's the kind of shit. I mean, they were kind of harmless. Nobody got beat up, but I mean, Irish was ready to throw, and I mean, everybody knows what happened to him in the end. But I'll stop there because I'll build something around Irish because he's a character, man. I had some really fun parties with him. Cheryl used to just my wife would pull her hair out when Irish came to the house to pick me up. "Can George come out and play?" He would actually go up and down the street, idling on his bike like a kid on a bicycle, and he'd yell at Cheryl, "Is George there?" And it was the rest is history, as they
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
Okay.
Several of you wrote on how you feel about the major clubs and possible peace talks. That's kind of closing out the questions here. You can kind of go on about that.
Yeah. Well, I think that if the peace talks are good. I got to get Beverly's microphone because she may go in the kitchen and start talking shit behind my back.
To the dog.
Well, you never know. I know what the hell you guys got going. He gave me a dirty look earlier, but Beverly, thank you. It was a pleasure, and I'll see you. I'll see you in the house later. No, I'm being a
Bye.
fucking smart ass now, but you know, are the clubs, major clubs, having sit downs? I don't know. It'd be great if they did, but I've got to tell you something. You know, I started doing that when I got back from prison in 1987, and it was not a very popular posture to have. People were pissed off. People thought it made people look weak. I know I got accused of being weak. The only person that never accused me of being weak, uh, but still back. Sonny was more on that hard edge. Was Irish. Irish knew what the right thing to do was, and Irish liked the party. And you know, I'll tell you, we had a big lecture in the officers' meeting about not going to Sturgis and partying with the Outlaws. And what happened? Everybody went to Sturgis. We wound up partying with the Outlaws, the Banditos. This was on the 50th anniversary, and you know what? Everybody was having a good time with them. So you know, if everybody could get together, that would be great. You know what? There's four lanes, two going up and two going down. There's plenty of room for everybody. So that's kind of my philosophy. I told you last week we'd talk about Art this week. Art from Berdoo. You know, Art was a hell of a Hell's Angel. You know, I got to know him real well, and I attribute that to David Ortega because David Ortega, when he was a question mark, really had developed an early relationship with the Berdoo Hells Angels. They partied with them up at Bass Lake and whatnot. I know Dave and uh, Jack the Ripper from Berdoo were good friends, so we had a real tight connection. Now, the first time I remember meeting Art was in the early '80s, and I want to say something at this point. You know, along with David Ortega, Fat Ray, Johnny A, Mario Rubio, Chomp, Mario Lopez. You know, that should dispel the myth that no Mexicans were allowed or wanted in the Hells Angels. I don't know where that came from. It was always bullshit to me. But that's the people that were in the club. You know, I first remember Art as a prospect in the early '80s. We're on our way to Colorado. Ventura and Berdoo went a lot of places together, traveled a lot of places together. I lost count of how many USA runs we went on together. But Grubby Glenn had just taken over the Berdoo charter. Jeff had been the president. Billy Maggot and Grubby Glenn, Brutus, and you know Whitey and different people had come back from a beef, and Jeff had stepped aside, let Glenn take over. So Glenn and I were leading the pack to Colorado, and Art was driving the support truck, and you know, back in the day, I don't know how it is nowadays. I know kind of how it was towards the end of my tenure. You know, people seem like they like to get out of riding their bikes, and back in the day, everybody wanted to ride their bikes. And Art was a prospect. We made Art drive the truck, the support truck, because we also needed the support truck, but we also had a member from one of the Scandinavian countries. I don't remember which one, and we were I guess the point I'm trying to make is people wanted to ride their bikes. They didn't want to ride in a car. They didn't want to fly. Uh, but anyways, Art was driving the truck. We'd stop for gas. We're on our way. We'd stop for gas just outside of Vegas, and you know that town of Vegas was kind of like you know in Homer's uh, Odyssey. Ulysses, you know, wanted to hear the sirens, and Vegas was like hearing the sirens sing. You have to get your Greek history if you know to try to know what I'm talking about right now. But I had been to Vegas earlier, like a year or two earlier. I ran into Tony Spilotro there. You heard me tell that story before, and we just figured Vegas is someplace we wanted to stay away from. So Art was not only driving the truck, but he was babysitting that European member who happened to be on the verge of a nervous breakdown. And the European member wound up getting a new nickname by the time this whole thing was over with, and we started calling him Norty the Nut because he just went off the deep end. It was a perfect example why European members shouldn't send members over to the United States that can't speak English. This guy had come over here, had never been around, you know, United States, California Hell's Angels. Uh, People were uh, giving him bumps of that P2P crank from the late '70s, early '80s, and he was on a zinger, man. And he just was on the edge of going out. And Glenn and I kind of talked him down. Uh, the next day, we took off out of Mesquite. That's where we stayed. Mesquite back in those days was just a little gas stop. Didn't even have a big casino. It was a cafe with a casino in it. But we put him in the truck. We kept trying to talk him down. We could see he was on the verge. Glenn was talking to him. Glenn and David even started talking to him with a broken English and a European accent. It's just funnier than hell. But uh, we took off in the morning. David Ortega came up with the idea to put the truck in front of the pack instead of behind it. That way we could kind of watch, and then the sound of all the bikes wouldn't be running through that guy's brain, the guy from Europe. And after about 3 miles, he knew we were taking him out to the desert to kill him. That's what his thought process was. And Art fought with him. The door of the truck flung open as the truck slowly, you know, lost speed. Uh, Norty the Nut ran down the hill. A couple of Ventura members and a Berdoo member, we ran down the hill after Norty the Nut. He locked himself up in a house, and the rest is history, as they say. We wound up being with uh, the cops all day long in St. George. This is back in the day. Cops didn't even know really about crank and all that shit. They weren't too hip to it, and the cops kept asking me, "What's wrong with this guy?" Because the police now had him in their custody. And if you want to read about the whole story, it's very complicated. It's in my book, Outlaw Riding Through the Storm. I think it's called Norty the Nut, but that particular chapter. But the cops kept asking me, "What is it?" And I ultimately told them he had extreme jet lag. And officer, I can assure you, I've seen this before, and I know that's what it is. It was almost kind of like a mom joke. But the way Art handled the situation, he got real high marks from David Ortega, Jack the Ripper, the old Berdoo guys, and people started seeing him as what back in that particular point in time we would call a guy a regular. If he was a real stand-up guy, you'd ask him, "What do you think of that guy?" Well, he's a regular, and David dubbed him with the regular because we were ganging up on Art. He took everything we threw at him, and you know what? It was may sound like chaos, but it was organized chaos, if you will. We had a fun time. That was the beginning of a long, long relationship with Art. We had a lot of riding together, a lot of parties together, a lot of private visits up to Ventura, down to Berdoo, and everything was going along good. And then at the end of '80s, I think it was February of '89, we went to the Queen Mary to a bike show. Easy Riders having a trade and motorcycle show. It was a really, really cool place. Great setup, but I knew that it could have been a problem because Long Beach was a Mongol town, and the Queen Mary was permanently ported in Long Beach. And I just knew that the Mongols were not going to let us show up in that town without making their presence known as well. And I know Mongol leader Scott Erickson. I think that's his name. I think I said it correctly. His version's a little different than mine. And I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm not saying I'm wrong. In the fog of war, man, and during conflicts or whatever you want to call it, everyone has a different perception of what transpired. That's one guy I would really like to sit down to. I know we come from different uh, clubs and philosophies, perhaps, but not too far away from each other. That's a guy I'd really like to talk to. Maybe even get him on the show if anybody knows him, can mention that to him. But I'm going to tell you how I remember it. I remember the day was going great. We kept waiting for the Mongols to show up. As the afternoon was wearing on, we got there about noon, and late in the afternoon, 4:30, 5 o'clock, people were kind of getting burned out. We wanted everybody to leave together, and they didn't want to. I think as a leader, myself personally, it was a big mistake. I wound up leaving. I got fed up and said, "I'm pulling out of here." There were guys, diehard guys there, that were positive they were going to get some introductions to the women that were going to change their lives permanently, so they would not leave. But there was a handful, maybe 20 guys left. All the leaders had taken off that I remember. Perhaps Jeff might have been there still, or he may have left. But eventually, the Mongols showed up. Uh, like I said, Scott tells the story different than I do. I remember, and I was told that they came in on two waves. You know, did it happen that way or not? I don't know. All I know is in the end result was Art got stabbed in the chest and he bled out in the parking lot, and it was a real tough. It was a real tough day for us. I remember leaving the Queen Mary in Long Beach, riding home, and I pulled into my driveway up in Ojai Valley, just out of Ventura. And my wife Cheryl ran outside. She said, "Oh my God, they killed Art." And I said, "Who killed Art?" And she said, "The Mongols." And uh, Tom, no cell phones back then. Tom said he'd call back every 10 minutes. They knew I'd probably be home about that time. Got Tom on the phone. He gave me a rundown of what was happening. It was a sad day, sad funeral. I believe Art and Louis are buried next to each other out in San Bernardino. Some people tried to blame the Easy Rider magazine. I thought was foolish. I mean, the Mongols rode into there knowing what was possibly going to happen. We rode into their town knowing what was possibly going to happen. Do I think it was prudent? Might have been better to have the in a neutral area. But I mean, who thinks of stuff like that? These guys, Easy Rider magazine, were trying to entertain the public and doing a good job of it. So I don't blame anybody. And I think the blame is really the primal instincts within man. That was their town. They were going to show up. They were going to protect it. We went there being a little bit cavalier, maybe. We should have had a sit down with them before we went there, but we didn't. We lost Art in the process. It was hard to swallow. But I'm going to end it here, thinking about Art. I hope this new microphone better for you. Keep in mind there's no edits to this thing. I don't do retakes or edits or whatever. I just like to sit down here and talk to you guys like we're just all hanging out. So I hope you'll follow. I hope you'll like. I hope you'll comment. And you know what? I don't give a shit if you want to talk shit about me. Bring it on, fellas. And to the people that support me, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Later.